I'm writing this from my room on the second story of my home. I'm hiding in my closet in fear of the thing that scared me so much as a child. When I was 9, my father, mother, and I had moved into my grandma's old house on the countryside. She had died some time before, and my mother had inherited her house. While my parents, along with my uncle, were unpacking, I had wandered over to the empty pool that was at the very back of the yard we had behind the house. I remember reaching the broken fence before I heard my father. "Samantha, get away from there." I spun around and ran back to where my uncle resided on the back porch. "Why can't I explore near the pool? It's not like I'm going to fall in," I asked, looking up at my uncle before turning to look back at the far end of the yard, the light from the porch only leaving a dim glow against the broken fence. "There's a man in there," was all he said before he ushered me back inside. What he told me that night scared the life out of me. I never went back to the far side of the yard. I was only 9 at the time, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I never found out why he was so scared until many years later. My bedroom window overlooked the backyard, so every time I passed my window, I saw the dark pit that was the pool. One night I took a chance and looked out the window, looking at the pool and the broken fence. I squinted. Being too dark to see anything, I grabbed my torch and opened the window, shining it at the pool. There was blood, starting at the broken fence and a trail leading up to the shed that was just beside the porch. I screamed and dropped my torch, slamming the window shut and throwing myself into my bed. My parents came running in, my dad with a baseball bat and my mom holding a magazine of sorts, demanding what happened. "There's blood going to the fence from the pool," I cried, getting up and grabbing my father's arm and pulling him to the window, picking up my torch and shining it where I had before, the same blood trail being lit up under the bright light. My father promised he would go investigate in the morning. When I woke up the next day, my father had told me that he went and looked at the blood trail, and judging from the size of the trail and where it led, he told me it was probably an animal that hurt itself on the broken fence, and reminded me of what my uncle had told me, not to go near the fence on the far side of the yard. That was the first of many strange things that happened in that damn yard. A week or so after the blood trail, I woke up and found a dead bird impaled on the spiked top of the fence. My father wasn't home, but as I ventured outside to see where my mother was, I saw her pushing the dead animal off the spike before sweeping it into the empty pool with her broom. "Mom?" I called out. Her head snapped around and looked at me, her body language showing she was angered by being watched. "Samantha, get inside!" she snapped at me. Knowing that if I didn't listen to her I'd be in trouble, I ran back inside. She didn't follow until a good 20 minutes later. I didn't dare ask what she was doing near the pool. Months passed by and I constantly saw my mother the same time every day while my father was at work pushing a new dead animal into the empty pool with her broom. Some were foxes that got caught on the small holes of the broken fence and starved to death. Others were more birds or even stray cats that had fallen victim to it. I grew used to seeing blood or deceased animals, so whenever I saw something caught in the fence, I told my mother and she just kissed my forehead and told me not to worry about it. One day my father came home from work early as he had forgotten his lunch to find my mother sweeping yet another deceased cat into the pool. From my room, I heard my father shouting at her, asking why she was doing this and for how long. I never heard my mother reply, but instead I heard my father come back inside with a slam of the back door. Then a few moments later, the sweeping continued. I'm now 19. My parents got divorced quite a while ago for many reasons. My father had to move out to live in a town over about an hour or so from my mother's house. I saw him quite often and spoke to him every night on the phone. My mother's health had deteriorated over the years. She had rheumatoid arthritis, causing it hard for her to move around without help. You see, after my father left my mother and I, she stopped sweeping dead things into the pool, as her joints became weak because she refused to see a doctor or accept my help. She would just sit on the back porch and stare off into the distance, only coming inside to make meals or when it became dark. One night, my uncle had taken my mother away for the weekend to finally see a doctor, and I was left all alone in the house. I was on Skype with my boyfriend who lived in the city when I heard a large creaking sound coming from my window. I excused myself and got up, opening the window and looking down at the yard, looking for the source of the noise. I grabbed my phone and turned the torchlight on. That's when I saw it. A silhouette of a large hand curled around a bar of the fence, pulling itself up from what seemed to be the pool. I couldn't take my eyes off the thing. I watched as it stood up onto the side of the pool and looked at my window. Its eyes stood out the most. They shone in the light from my phone, like if you were to shine a light on a dog or cat's eyes. Its silhouette was human-like, but if the limbs had been twisted out of shape, its legs faced to the side instead of forward, its arms were limped by its side. I stared at its face. I wish I hadn't. Its face was mangled and bloody like it's been attacked, its mouth set in a wide grin. I heard my boyfriend asking what was wrong, and as the creature started running towards the house, I remember my uncle's words from a decade ago. "There's a man in there.